Okay, this is lesson 50 for 8th grade, and today we're talking about solving multi-step equations. Not too much different than solving for a one-step equation, except for obviously we're going to have maybe a couple steps or maybe three. Okay. So basically what we've done in order to solve for any sort of variable is we've used inverse operations to isolate a variable in an equation. And remember that the inverses are the things that undo a process. So let's say we're adding. Subtraction would be the inverse. If we were multiplying, division would be the inverse. If we had something squared, square root would be the inverse. That type of thing. Alright? So it helps us isolate variables is what we're looking at. Okay? And it says here just that isolating a variable such as x actually means that 1 times x plus 0 is on one side of the equal sign. Because 1 times x is just x, okay, because 1 times anything is just itself. And if you add 0 to something, it doesn't change it either. So that's essentially what it means when we get x by itself. Okay, so let's take a look at this problem here. They set up an equation for us. It says a taxi charges $1.20 to start a ride, plus $3 per additional mile. So if the ride costs $4.50, how far was the ride? It says that x represents the distance traveled, $3 for every additional mile. And we're going to solve for x to figure out how far it went. Alright, so remember, whatever we do to one side of the equation, we want to do to the other side to keep things balanced. So we imagine that we have a scale, and right now these two things are in perfect balance with each other. If I take $1.20 away from here, I take $1.20 over here so that they stay balanced. That's the idea of solving for an equation. Alright, so we look at what's happening to this quantity, 3 times x. What is happening to it? Well, we're adding $1.20. So in order to get rid of this, we want to subtract $1.20 from both sides. And what that does is $1.20 minus $1.20, they just go away. They cancel out. So we're left with 3 times x plus 0. And that equals 540 minus 120, which is 4.20. Okay? Now remember, plus 0 doesn't do anything. Plus 0 is, still 3x. Because if you add 0 to something, it doesn't change it. And remember, our whole goal is to get x by itself. Okay? Now we look at this. What's happening to x? Well, we're multiplying it by 3. So in order to do the inverse of that, we will divide by 3. 3 over 3 is 1. So really we have 1 times x now, but we also have to divide this by 3. And $4.20 divided by 3. Let's take a look quick. 1, subtract, bring down 2, goes in there 4 times. Okay. So $1.40. Wait, not $1.40. We are solving for a distance. So 1x, or just x, equals 1.4 miles. That's additional miles, sorry. That was a distance that we solved for. So that's a multi-step equation. It took 2 steps. First we had to take away 120, then we had to divide by 3. Okay? And you're done when x is by itself. Okay? So 1.4 miles there. Let's take a look at 1 or 2 more examples. I don't have as much time today as I normally do. And whatever we don't get to, we'll go through tomorrow. Okay, one question I wanted to bring up says, how are the steps to solving and checking an equation related to the order of operations? Normally our order of operations is solve parentheses first, something inside the parentheses, then exponents, then multiply, divide, add, or subtract. Okay? When you're solving for a variable, the order of operations is backwards. Notice how we subtracted first, and then we divided. Where normally if we were solving something, like let's say it was 3 times 2 plus 1.
Would Melissa Cesares and Vanessa Head please come down to the office, and Ella Blaisdell? Melissa Cesares, Vanessa Head, and Ella Blaisdell. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Sorry. If we were just to solve this, it's equal to 7. Because normally we would do 3 times 2, we would get 6.
Mandy Malberg, please come to the office. Mandy Malberg.
3 times 2 is 6, and then we'd add 1, because that's our order of operations. Normally we would multiply before we add. However, in this scenario, when solving for a variable, we subtracted first, and then we divided. So the operations are backwards when we're solving for a variable. So I just want to bring that up. Alright, looks like we've got 2 more to go through. We'll at least get through one of these here. Okay, so first thing we want to do is look at what's happening to the quantity that has an x with it. That right there, what's happening to it? We're taking a 5 away. What's the inverse of taking away a 5? You add a 5. So we add a 5 to both sides. Alright? These will cancel out, and these turn into 0. Negative 5 plus 5 is 0. And we still bring down negative 2x, because that's still there. Alright, 9 plus 5 is 14. So now we have this equation. Now remember, adding a 0 doesn't change anything, so we can just get rid of that. So we have negative 2 times x equals 14. Okay? So don't let this negative throw you off. It's just a negative 2. Don't worry about it. We're going to, since we're multiplying here, we do the inverse of that. We are going to divide by negative 2. When you divide by the same thing, negative 2 divided by negative 2, you get 1. 1x. 14 divided by negative 2. Positive divided by negative gives us a negative. And 1x.
Vanessa Head, come to the office, please. Vanessa Head.
So we have to solve. Because 1x just means x. So x should be negative 7. Let's see if that makes sense. We can go back and check. Let's put negative 7 in for x. Negative 2 times negative 7. So 2 negatives multiplied together gives us a positive. So we've got negative 2 times negative 7 is a positive 14. 14 minus 5 is 9. And that's how we can go back and check it. Just a side note.
Mrs. Bunham's 8th hour family living should report to her classroom. What is it? Oh, 8th hour healthy living should report to Mrs. Bunham's classroom. Thank you.
So once again, negative 2 times negative 7 is 14. 14 minus 5 is 9. So you can always go back and check your answer to see if you got it right. Which means whenever you get an answer, if it's wrong, go back and see what went wrong. Alright, looks like we've got time for this last one. Okay. This one's a little different. We've done something this year called combining like terms. Now that's when we combine the things that look alike. 3x, and we want to circle the symbol in front of the x2. Okay? So we combine these two. 3x minus 1x is a 2x. So we have 2x plus 4 equals 28. And from there, I'm going to go through this one quick, because I got to get going. Inverse of adding 4, we subtract 4 from both sides. We get a 0, so I'm just going to drop this 2x down. And 28 minus 4 is 24. And then we check, we got to divide by 2. 1x, or just x, should equal 12. Now let's see if that makes sense. Let's do 3 times 12 to check. Plus 4 minus 12 minus 12. Okay, so 36 plus 4 minus 12. 36 plus 4 is 40. 40 minus 12 is 28. So we would be right there. Okay, I've got to get going, but we'll be going over this probably for a couple days, and we'll see you then.